Anything you put your mind to, you accomplish. And you never back down cause you deserve it. The light shines in you cause you're the realest. And you walk by faith, you're optimistic. You inspire me, girl, you inspire me. You're so inspirational. Inspirational.
Welcome back to Your Inspirational. I'm your host, Wamika Servant, and today I have with me the lovely and poised and graceful Jimel Gibbs. Welcome her. How are you doing today, girl?
I am doing wonderful. I am so thankful it's Friday, so
Yeah.
I am ready for the weekend.
Oh my gosh, so how's your work week? I know that you do something in medical, so can you talk about it and express, what it's all about?
Absolutely. So I am blessed because I'm able to do something that I love. I am a family nurse practitioner,
Okay.
which means that as a nurse practitioner, I was trained to see various ages, from pediatrics to the geriatric population, which is the elderly
Okay.
population. So I've seen them all during my tenure, during my career as a nurse practitioner. But for the most part, I see elderly patients.
Okay.
I see patients who have retired. I see patients with Medicare, Medicaid, and Medicare Advantage.
Okay.
So I see the majority of the times that I see patients is within the home.
Okay.
So it's a home-based setting
Oh, wow.
where I'm performing care for them in the home, whether that's like a home health or wellness type visit, or I also do a lot of palliative care and hospice as well.
Okay. And so with being in the medical field, I know you hear a lot that goes on. So, with women, how is it, what do you recommend, for so many women, I know giving birth and all the issues and all the deaths of our colored women. So what do you suggest, different things where they're careful, I guess, during carrying a child?
So when carrying a child, I think that being screened early on, especially as we get older, there's a term that's called geriatric mother,
Okay.
which it sounds like it could be offensive, but it's basically just saying it's a woman who is 35 or older
Okay.
and who is expecting.
Okay.
So of course there's going to be, that mother's just going to be at higher risk for certain things.
Why is that though?
So because the woman's eggs are older.
Okay.
So when the eggs are older, it just means that there's more chances that the baby can come out with certain genetic complications. So we like to screen early. We really like to screen early for all women, but especially women that are 35 and older.
Okay.
And based on your genes, based on your genetics, based on your health, certain women are just going to be at higher risk for some things, and they'll need to take certain precautions. For instance, some women will have, and especially this is large within Black women or African American women, many women will have gestational diabetes.
Okay.
So if you have gestational diabetes and you're diagnosed with that during pregnancy, it simply means that you have a higher risk of actually developing type 2 diabetes in life, even after the pregnancy.
Okay.
So of course that mother will have certain things and certain precautions, certain things that she'll need to do, certain things that she'll need not to do. So that's one screening that we do. It's also very important that women of childbearing age, or even if you're thinking of becoming pregnant or want to become pregnant, you should start a prenatal vitamin.
Yeah.
And I've always advised women to start that early on, to start that before you get pregnant. One that preferably has at least 1 gram of folic acid or folate, which is going to also help prevent birth defects for the baby.
Wow.
So vitamin D, I could go on and on, but I feel like vitamin D is another very important vitamin that oftentimes we lack.
Yeah.
As Black people, oftentimes our vitamin D levels are low.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we don't know why, but especially women that are overweight or obese, our vitamin D levels tend to be lower. So that is something that you can also go to the doctor and you can ask your doctor to draw a vitamin D level so that you can see if you're vitamin D deficient. Because when you're vitamin D deficient, it can impact your energy level. It can impact your hair. So a lot of times women will wonder, why is my hair not growing? Why am I having breakage? oftentimes it's a vitamin D deficiency.
Okay.
So those are just a few examples of things that are really important to think about as you're wanting to begin having a family.
Yeah. I have two questions. Okay. Well, first with the babies. Now, do you suggest that there's a better time to have children? Like, should you not wait till you get a certain age? Like, to just have the cutoff time? Or, like, should you be doing it early?
So I think for each woman, it's just different, and it depends on your situation.
Yeah.
Definitely, I am married, and when I have 3 children. I was blessed with 3 children, and I could not imagine being a single mom or having 3 children without a husband. So now that I am a mom, when I see a single mom, kudos to them because I have an entire whole new appreciation for single mothers. Yeah. So definitely, I think it's important to see who the father is, the spouse or the mate or the partner. Or is that going to be someone that's dependable, someone that you can count on? Because being a parent is such a huge responsibility. It takes two, and it's such a blessing. But you want to make sure that you all are on the same page, that you all are united, that you all are going to come together and that you're going to be on one accord when it comes to raising those children.
Yeah.
So that is different for each and every person. And it's some people that might be 25, but for other women, it may be 40.
Yeah.
But every person has to really just pray and use wisdom and think about and plan what's the best time for you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so scary. I don't know, just just thinking about it because I know, some people didn't have a chance, to have a baby so soon or whatever, but life, and so they have them later, but it's just scary to just even think about all those complications or just because I know is one of them. I don't know if it's not Down syndrome, but it's like an issue that you have and your child is a little bit slower. What is that?
So that could absolutely be Down syndrome. Down syndrome, and of course, that is one of the anomalies that we kind of talked about, or one of the complications for older women. As we have children and we're older and we're 35 or older, we're just more at risk for having a child with Down syndrome. But there are screenings that they can do even while you're pregnant to test for those type things. Now, long time ago, you used to could see that via amniocentesis, which is just a small procedure when they take a little bit of the amniotic fluid while the woman is pregnant, and they're able to test the amniotic fluid to see if the child may have Down syndrome. But as technology has progressed, now they can tell those things just by a simple blood test. So when a woman becomes pregnant, even during her first trimester, they're able to get a little bit of blood, and then they can tell you if your child may be at risk for a variety of several different genetic anomalies.
Okay. And so you mentioned earlier that you have 3 children now. How is it, being in the medical profession or medical field and having children and trying to be a mom and, still have your job and then also being a wife, adding all that together and just trying to balance life?
So I feel like it's something I have not mastered. I feel like in that regard, I feel like I'm still a student and I am still learning to balance everything. I think that it is important to remember yourself. So you've got to put yourself first oftentimes in order to be. Like? So putting yourself first for me, that means having a day where I just have it to myself, whether that's drinking coffee in the morning, just kind of enjoying my coffee after I've gotten the children off to school. I get a chance to just sit and relax, and that may be listening to music, that may be exercise. Oftentimes for me, that's journaling, something that is very important to me, because I think that as a wife, as a mother, as a career woman, sometimes we have to have time for self-reflection and just to put things in perspective. And again, that's going to look different for every woman. Prayer is a huge part of that. I think just having an active prayer life just kind of helps me stay in tune at where I am and what's going on with me, and it helps me to reflect on things that maybe I even need to work on, maybe things that are not going as they should. So I feel like having a prayer life and a spiritual life and just kind of I think all of that is just so important. It's important in focusing on your marriage as well as focusing on the things that your children may need from you as well.
Yeah. So how long have you been married?
I have been married. My husband and I, which is Mario Gibbs, we have been married for 15 years.
Wow. So how did y'all meet, and how did y'all establish the boundaries of your marriage and all those things? Because I know there are so many people who don't, or the beliefs, before getting married, if one person believes a certain things, they kind of prevent the other person from doing certain things, or having those boundaries. So how did y'all establish that, and how did the Holy Spirit, or your upbringing in church, allow that boundaries, or just allowing you all to set a standard for your marriage?
Mm-hmm. So Mario and I, we met back in 2006, and we met at church. We're both members of Faith Apostolic Church in Birmingham, and we met. I had been a member of the church. I was a new member to the church, and I had only been there for a few months. But Mario had been watching me. Even when he first saw me, it took him time before he actually approached me. Mm-hmm. So I do remember the night that he approached me. I remember it like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. It was actually, our church was having a council, mm-hmm. and he had approached me after service and asked me if he could walk me to my car. So it was just very sweet. It was a very sweet courtship. Okay. Because it began by him just, whenever we were at church, he would always walk me to my car, and we would talk as he was walking me to my car. And finally, one day, he did ask me for my telephone number. And later, he did ask me on a date. Okay. And our first date was at Applebee's. But so during that time, we met and we had our courtship. It did not take us long to realize that we wanted to take it to the next level. Yeah. And we wanted to be married. Our total courtship probably was about 3 months. Okay. Before he actually asked me to marry him. And our engagement, we were probably engaged, not probably, but we were engaged for even longer than our courtship. Okay. So when we were courting, it did move pretty fast. We both grew up in the apostolic faith. Okay. So in that regard, we had grown up with just similar values, yeah. And we were raised very similarly with similar beliefs. So that made it easy. It's not like one of us was, came from one denomination, yeah. And one of us was of a different denomination. Yeah. We were already of the same faith, yeah. And very equally yoked. So we were able to just kind of focus on, what we wanted. Yeah. Do we both want children? Yes, both want children. I enjoy my career. I love your career. You don't have to worry about giving up your career. So oftentimes men may want a woman who wants to, stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom, and that's fine. Yeah. Like, I love what that looks like. Yeah. But for me, I felt like I had really worked hard to go to school and to graduate, and I knew that I didn't want to stay at home exclusively. Yeah. I also wanted to be able to have my own career. Yeah. And he's always been supportive. He has been with me. When I married Mario, I only had a bachelor's degree. Yeah. And since that time, I've gone on. I've gotten a master's degree. I've gotten a postmaster's degree. I've gotten my doctorate degree. He has been my number one supporter and my cheerleader every step of the way. He's never discouraged me and said, no, don't do that. Don't try that. He's always been my number one supporter.
That's a blessing. So what is your definition of accomplishments? Success, actually, success. Because, I know that so many people are trying to do things, and sometimes it don't pan out the way we want it to pan out, and so they don't think they're successful. But certain things, like if you write and finish something, like finish a book, that's success, but it might not be selling. Absolutely. Or if you have a job and you might not be the best at your job, but you have a job, and that's successful because you went through, the proper channels to get that job. So what is success, and what encouragement can you give to those who don't feel like they're doing anything with their life?
So my definition of success is, I love what you said, writing it down. I believe it's important to set goals, short-term goals and long-term goals. And again, that's going to look different for each person. And I think that whenever you're able to accomplish those goals, I think that's outstanding and that is successful. So, someone's goal may be to finish, they want to learn how to sew and they want to go through a program maybe where they're certified as a seamstress. And that's their goal. So to complete that, that is successful. So I think success just looks different for everyone. Everyone is not going to want to go to college and get a 4-year degree. Everyone's not going to want to be a wife. Everyone's not going to want to be a mother. So I think it's important to just find out what you want to do, because it's definitely important to have goals. And I think we have to pray and ask God to give us the wisdom and the knowledge that we need to make those goals come to fruition, to make them happen and to accomplish it. So I just love seeing women that of a variety of that has so many different talents to offer, especially within the kingdom of God. There's going to be some women that are great cooks, and there are going to be some women that are just there are going to be some women that are creative and they can just make beautiful spaces, and there's going to be some women that are healthcare workers, and there are going to be there's going to be some women who are singers. But there's space for everybody. There's a place for everybody. God has just gifted us, and everyone has a different gift. Everyone has a different talent. But I just believe that it's important to utilize that gift, whether it's in your home, whether it's within your family, know what your strengths are. Know what your weaknesses are, and just whatever our strengths are, let's just constantly perfect it. Let's constantly use that. Let's bring it to the kingdom. Let's uplift one another. Because I think if you do that, you're just going to have a peace. When you know that you're doing what God's called you to do and you're fulfilling your purpose, whatever that may be, you're going to have an incredible peace.
And earlier you mentioned, how you have your husband as your cheerleader. So that helped you become successful and, reach your goals. Now, what would you say to women who are struggling because they have the wrong boyfriend or the wrong mate? Whatever's going on in their life. What can you say to them to help them understand, sometimes you have to leave certain things behind, like people or places or things, to help them grow. We have to do the pruning. And sometimes, God is doing the pruning, and sometimes we have to put stuff aside. So what can you say to women to encourage them, or even men who are watching, but sometimes people can drag you down and prevent you from getting to that success?
So I think the first thing to do, I'm going to always start with prayer, because without prayer, the Bible tells us that the Spirit makes intercession for us. Sometimes we're not going to know what we need. Oftentimes we really don't know what we want. But as we can just pray and just really take that time to just give it all to God, He helps us, and He gives us that discernment, and He gives us that insight, and He gives us that revelation. So when we're ready to accept whatever His will is, I guarantee you, if you go to God in prayer, He will show you if that person that you are with, if they're not for you. But we've got to be willing to accept that, and we've got to be willing to let it go. And sometimes it's the process. Sometimes if you've got that boyfriend and he's been your boyfriend for 10 years, you're not going to want to let that go. That's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel comfortable. But again, it's about trusting God and trusting whatever His will is for us. Because it's a faith walk. And it's a journey. And the Bible tells us that without faith, it's impossible to please God. So we've got to have faith, and we've got to trust God enough to say, Lord, not my will, but let your will be done.
And so with those type of, I think issues, or women who are, struggling to leave out of something, even if it's in marriage. Now, how did you, because I'm sure every person, every marriage has issues. Now, how did you even combat that? I know, we do pray, but there are so many people who are praying and they're wondering, why isn't certain things happening? So what do you suggest? Because, people are, killing people nowadays, killing themselves, killing their spouse because they're tired. And so some of them are even in the church, I don't know if they're saved, but, just they're in the church and they're still doing crazy stuff. So people kind of give up and they don't pray as much, or I don't know what the problem is. So, what do you suggest? Before, she's becoming a preacher, so I'm excited.
Well, I will definitely say what I have learned from my personal experience and what I am learning. First of all, you hear it when you're first getting married. You hear people say, keep other people out of your marriage. And of course, as you get married and time goes on, sometimes that's difficult to do. You know, we want to bring mama in. We want to bring our sister in. We want to bring in our best friend. But it is key to really keep people out of your marriage, because misery loves company. And oftentimes you may not know what's going on in someone else's household. So they can't be a good counselor or an advisor for you. And then sometimes people really aren't happy for you. Oftentimes maybe they're divorced or they've never been married. So their situation, they're not going to understand your situation. So I think that is key. I think communication is also key. You know, oftentimes I think that the Bible says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. So when we get angry and when we're frustrated and we really want to get our point across, we have the tendency to say things to our spouse or to our mate that is very hurtful, and it tears them down. So we have to learn to just really be positive, to use wisdom in the things that we say, to always be open and honest. And in order to do that, we do have to pray, and we have to ask God, Lord, give me wisdom in what I say. I don't want to purposely say anything that's going to hurt or going to tear down my husband. I want to build him up. But at the same time, I want to be honest with him. So I think sometimes you do, when you're angry and you're intense and you're frustrated and you're in the moment, sometimes you have to take the time to just walk away and give yourself time to kind of settle down, give yourself to calm down, give yourself time to reflect and to pray. And then oftentimes you can come back and you're in the right mindset to have that conversation that you need to have. So those are just things that I've learned over the years that I'm still utilizing today.
That's good. I mean, because I know, like I said, it's hard. Like, I don't know, I just hear a lot of stories, but I think the problem also is, like, you know, upbringing. If people are, like, say if a man was raised and he saw that the man's supposed to run the house, or, like, you know, just tell the spouse what to do, and this woman's supposed to be a yes woman all the time, like, you know, it's kind of difficult. And I think that's the reason why, you know, you're supposed to pray before getting into relationships. But what do you suggest for those who are, like, you know, on the fence or wanting to leave the relationship, but, like, you know, not really taking the word into account? Because, like, you know, you're supposed to try to walk it out, like, you know, go through it. So
absolutely. So I believe that counseling helps. And that does not make you less of a man or less of a woman or less spiritual because you utilize counseling. And I think that type of counseling that you get is up to the couple. So I've spoken with couples that have chosen to go to their pastor or their spiritual leader for counseling. And then I've spoken with couples who said, hey, we actually hired a professional marriage counselor. So again, I think that is an option that definitely should be explored, definitely before divorce or terminating the marriage or walking away. You know, that's never God's perfect will for us. So I think that we should explore counseling, because a lot of times we may not know what the root cause is, but by going to, you know, pastors, even, they have lots of experience with counseling couples. So I think it's oftentimes to do that and just to know that you've explored every angle before you are ready to give up, that you've explored and we've got to be willing to listen. We've got to be willing to humble ourselves and to listen. We can't let pride take over, because pride is deceitful and it is so vain, and it really kills a lot of relationships.
So what's the definition of pride? Like, what does it look like in marriage?
So pride, I think, looks like in marriage is just not willing to say, I'm sorry. Not willing to say, I was wrong. Not willing to ask for forgiveness. Because truly, none of us are perfect. We all live in the flesh. We're all going to do things. We're going to say things at times that are not of God. Let's just be honest. We're not walking in the spirit all the time. Sometimes we're going to do things that are not of God. We're going to say things that we should not have said. But where it comes in is being big enough to admit that you were wrong, to apologize, to ask for forgiveness. Because if you can't do that, then.
But do you think that, because I know that there are certain churches where you're expected to uphold a certain standard in a way where you can't even really be yourself. It's almost like you're becoming what they want you to become. And I think that affects certain marriages where you're trying to be whatever the people want you to be. I see it a lot. And I just feel like that is part of the problem, because the church is kind of like in your marriage, not necessarily knowing your business, but trying to control you in a certain way because they're trying to interpret the Bible a certain type of way. And so to me, I just feel like it can cause problems in marriages. Like, if the woman has to become this way because this is what the church expects of her. And so how do they combat that? Like, just focusing on, hey, this is my spouse and we have God in this, and so we're going to live like this and not worrying about what the people say.
Well, I definitely think so. Every household is going to be run differently. And I think that once you're married, and it's an ongoing process. Yeah. It's not just on the first day we get married. We go through all of these things. Yeah. It's a continuous, marriage is a flower. We got to continuously water it in order for it to grow. We've got to tend to it, and we've got to put into it. And sow into it every single day. So, and I think what works for one household is not going to work for another. Yeah. And I think it's, some households, you may have some people that believe, okay, you need to have the same account. Yeah. That's not going to work for every household. Yeah. So I think that in marriage, I think we just kind of have to be flexible. Yeah. We have to be open, be willing to try to see if the one account thing works. But if you do that and you see that it doesn't work, you come up with the process for your own household, and no one else has to know what you do. Yeah. I think it's just important to, just really be respectful, because as a husband, there's certain things he's not going to want everybody to know about him. Yeah. And as a wife, there's going to be certain things that you may not want everyone to know about you. Yeah. So we have to know what the things that's okay to share publicly, and the things that is just a private matter. It's a private issue and it's taboo and it should never be shared. Yeah. So that is one thing. And as you grow and you get to learn your spouse, you'll get to learn automatically your spouse's personality, and you're going to know, now he would never want me to share this, or he would never want me to say this. And it's having enough respect to not do that because you have respect for your mate.
Yeah, that's true. And that's crazy. But I mean, because I think you have to get to that point too of if your relationship is at that level where you're respecting each other. Because if you don't respect each other, you're probably gonna say anything or do anything. Absolutely. But I think it grows to that part, like you said, when you're pruning. Once you prune and you're growing, then you can learn to respect each other. But when you don't have respect for each other, but let me ask you this, because you're being a doctor or a physician now, in my spirit, there were certain things that's come to me. It was about marriage, and it's about people having sex toys and different things like that. So I know that the Bible says the bed is undefiled, but can sex toys affect the body in any kind of way? I'm have you had any experience with that? And I'm gonna say first, because I don't know how the way God is allowing me to understand and see, but certain people shouldn't have it, only because if you came out of the world and you're bringing the world back into your marriage, and it causes problems. I know it can cause problems because you may want more of more sex toys, because this sex toy is not fulfilling whatever the thing is. But that's spiritually and mentally, but then physically I just wanted to know and understand what is, because people are doing so much stuff, sticking so many different things in their body and different things like that. Right. So I just wanted to understand.
So is my opinion, of course, the Bible really doesn't talk about that specifically. It does say the marriage bed is undefiled, and I believe that. But I also believe, we can spend so much time engaging with sex toys, and that is the less time that we have to be intimate with our husband or with our spouse. Yeah. So we know that sex was created for married couples to bond and to unite and to cling and to become closer. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that was created by God for a man and a woman to engage in. Yeah. So I personally believe that if you are spending more time indulging and finding pleasure with the toy than your actual husband, I think that can create a major problem because intimacy is something that is very vital. I won't say it's the foundation, but it plays a major part in how happy you are, how fulfilled you are, and probably how successful your marriage and your relationship is going to be. So if the both of you are doing your own thing with these different toys, I just don't believe that that's God's ultimate will, and I don't believe that that is what it was created for. So, but that again, that is my opinion. I'm not knocking anyone who does that or who uses those things, but I believe that, and if it's something that maybe your spouse isn't doing or is doing that maybe you don't like,
open up and talk about it.
You got to be open enough to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And that's almost, I feel like, a point of maturity, because when you first get married, you're in that honeymoon phase, maybe you don't feel comfortable enough to say, I really don't like when you do that. But as you mature, because I do feel like maturity is something that just comes with time. And you do feel comfortable enough and you get to know your spouse well enough to know that you can say and be honest without being hurtful and just say, maybe, do you think we can try something different? So that, and as you do that, I just believe that God just blesses. You see couples that have been married for 50 years, for 60 years, and they're each other's best friend. And from me observing, that's because they know what to say.
How to say it.
They know how to say
and they
it.
allow each other to talk.
Yes. And they know when to say it. So all of that is a form of wisdom within itself. And, the Bible tells us that whoever lacks wisdom, they can ask it of God, and He gives it generously. He gives it liberally. So that's going to teach us what to say, when to say, and how to say it.
Well, I'm asking these questions because of things that come in my spirit. I don't know. It's just, and like, I don't, since you're a physician, like, to me, I just feel like it was the proper person to ask. So like, I wanted to ask that so that you can kind of, help me understand that. Because I know that sometimes, like, I know when you go to the doctor, they ask you, like, about even sexual partners for some reason. And so, like, if they ask them about sexual partners, like, shouldn't they be asking about the sex toys that they're sticking up? Like, like, what kind of toys are you using? Are you doing these kind of things? Like, do they do that? And I wanted to know, like, does that play a part in cancer, ovarian cancer at all?
So I have not, and I have worked with, in the GYN era, and I've worked with women of childbearing age. And we've had multiple discussions about sex partners and hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, and all of those diseases that are associated with having multiple sex partners. I've never had the conversation about the sex toys. I will say I do think for people who do like to engage with sex toys, it is important that you clean them appropriately, that you disinfect them. They should come with instructions on how to clean them properly. Even though I'm sure it's something that's not being shared, even if it's a single use and you only use it yourself, it's still something that you would want to disinfect. So at this point, I have not heard of anything in particular or like any infection that's been associated or any damage that is associated with using sex toys, but I would say there is a potential for that if they're not properly disinfected, for sure.
So do you think that people who want to be saved, like, if you want to grow spiritually, should you be handling sex toys? I don't know, just for me, I just don't feel like you should, but I just wanted to know, like, because you're so rooted in the word. And so, like, just understanding that, like, because to me, I just feel like taking time away from God and playing over here. And even people, like, I'm sure they're laying hands on people at the pulpit, but people are doing so many different things that they shouldn't be doing. Like, or even engaging in, like, watching porn or anything like that. But then you're laying hands or you're doing this for the church. So that's what I'm trying to understand.
So that, as you said that made me think of something that my mother used to always tell me as I was growing up and I was coming up. She used to always say, when dealing with people and with dealing with saints that are even new or coming into the church, it's important to catch the fish before you try to clean the fish. So that's just saying, when you've got people that's coming into the church and they're new to the church, it's important to let them come in and just, they're babies.
Yeah.
You hear the term baby saints. So they're not going to come in knowing everything that the seasoned saints know that have been saved for 15 or 20 years. So I think that as that person develops, as that baby continues to develop, and as they begin to get full of the Spirit will convict them about using the sex toy.
But I'm talking about people who are filled with the Spirit already, and they're laying hands or they're doing work for the church, because that's happening in different churches, everywhere. So I'm saying I know that a lot of people are trying to pleasure themselves. People are masturbating. I mean, people are on the praise team. They're doing things, or people in the choir scene, or, just different places, or doing whatever in the church, but they don't have the self-control. And so, I'm saying to grow with the Holy Spirit, or to get deeper, can you have that? I don't understand it, or I don't see how it could be, but I'm just trying to understand it,
So I think that when we think about the fruits of the Spirit, there are certain things that comes when we get the Spirit, and when we have the Spirit. And they may not all come at once, right? Sometimes you may get the love, and you may get the gentleness, and then maybe later comes the long suffering and the temperance. So, but self-control is definitely one of those things. So I just believe that that's something that's definitely not addressed much. You don't hear that topic a lot of times addressed, and and I'm wondering, I'm like, maybe it's addressed in a singles ministry. I don't know, because like you said, a lot of the singles people probably will masturbate, and I can understand that they would probably want to masturbate if they feel like they need to do that instead of actually engaging in fornication or having premarital sex. With the sex toys, I don't know if that, and it's probably both a topic for singles as well as for a married ministry or marriage ministry. But I just believe, like you said, self-control, when you use that really, really stood out. And I just believe that as the fruits of the Spirit, as they develop within each person, whether that person is newly saved or whether that person's been saved for 20 years, I believe that self-control is going to set in, and there will eventually, and it may not be that way in the beginning, but I do believe that eventually they will develop, and as they mature, they will find that they don't need those type things.
And so your ministry, do you have one? Or, because I know that, I know I'm saying I know that you're doing the physician and medical, but aside from that, do you have a ministry that God has called you to do, with women or anything?
So I feel like everyone can minister. So definitely I am not an ordained minister. I'm not a preacher. I've not been called and anything like that. But in the things that I feel like God has given me, I do try to share. I enjoy working with the youth. I love working with children, and that's something that I've always done. God blessed me, even at the age of 13, God blessed me to start teaching Sunday school, and I was teaching young children even then. And here, I won't say how many years later, but several years later, I still love working with children. So I do feel like that's a part of my ministry. And I am very blessed and fortunate enough. I do work with the youth department and with a youth church and children's church at my home church at Faith Apostolic Church in Birmingham. I also, because I feel like healthcare, that's something that God has given me. That's something He's given me a passion for. It's something He's given me a love for. I love to educate, and I love to, just as we talked about prevention, for the pregnant woman, I love providing health promotion and health prevention and wellness and education. So I do feel like I can add a vital presence to the healthcare ministry. So I'm also a part of the healthcare professional team at my home church. And I'm still seeking God for what other types of ministries that I may have within me that are developing. I love hospitality. Okay. So whenever I have an opportunity, I like to also get with the hospitality team, especially if we have certain events. We are going to be serving in any type of capacity. I love to grab on with the hospitality team as well. So those are just a few of the ministries that I like to work with and participate with in.
So your attire, like, do you always, like, wear dresses, or is it, like, do you wear other clothing? I'm just, like, just comparing to, like, modest apparel, different things like that.
So I believe, so the way I was raised to wear very modest apparel. The way that my mother raised me when I was coming up, we did not wear earrings, we did not wear makeup, very modest apparel. As I have grown, now I will do earrings. I definitely try to do a modest earring. I try to do a stud. Definitely when I am at church, I definitely try to, even with my makeup, and I don't wear a lot of makeup, but sometimes I will. I try to be modest with that as well. I definitely don't want to do anything that's going to be offensive to others. So I definitely try to keep that in mind. If someone is going to be so focused on my makeup or my big earrings or my, tight low cut dress, that they can't focus on the message or on the church service, that is offensive. And so I definitely try to take into consideration the things that I wear in public. Now at home, I may have a special nice outfit that I like to wear in the privacy of my home that maybe my husband likes to see me in. But definitely when I'm in the house of God, I was raised to just really be respectful, for God's house. And there's certain things that we do. There's certain things that we don't do. There's certain things that we wear. There's certain things that we don't wear. For instance, wearing pantyhose. Wear pantyhose when you're in the pulpit. So that's something that's just, I've always been raised, and even now, that's something that, because a lot of that times now, ladies won't wear pantyhose. But that is just the proper etiquette that I've learned, and I've even tried to carry that into now. If I know that I'm going to be speaking and I'm going to be in the pulpit, I'm going to be very mindful wearing pantyhose, especially if I'm wearing a shorter dress. To have my lap scarf, or wear something long, to wear something that's not tight fitting. So again, I think that's just to take the distraction off. I never want to be a distraction for anyone in the spirit. I always want to decrease so that God will increase. So if that means pulling off big earrings or lots of red lipstick, I'm always willing to do those type things.
Cool. And so what is your definition of beauty? Because so many have it skewed. It's covering your face so bad, with makeup and just looking like a piece of cake, or just different things. So what is beauty? And then and compare it to how the God would be pleased with the beauty, So I know that there's nothing wrong with makeup. There's nothing wrong with a lot of things, but it's moderation. So just talk about it.
Absolutely. So I just believe that in life, it's about moderation. Just like you said, in our hairstyles, we want to be modest. In our makeup, we want to be modest. In even the things that we eat, I tell my patients, I have patients that have diabetes, and they say, "Oh, but I love my cupcakes." Okay, and I get that. Who can expect you to give up cupcakes for the rest of your life? But we must learn to do things in modesty, and we must learn how to fast from some things. It's just some things that we're going to have to let go, even if it's just for a time being. So coming back around, I feel like I've kind of deviated from the question, but I believe that it's modesty, and that is just in every aspect of our life, because if we can just become so overcome and so full of the things that we want, I think that it is just important to just have the spirit where we are willing to let go of some things, even the things that we love. Whether it's, if we love social media, we don't want to give up social media. If we love donuts, we've got to know how to be able to give up donuts, not forever. Make some sacrifices, even just for the time being. So, and I think that beauty, and that's what beauty is to me. I think beauty starts from within.
Yeah.
So I think that if you've got a beautiful spirit, that you're comfortable in who you are, I think beauty is uplifting others and being an encouragement to others, because I think that that's confidence.
Yeah.
When you can uplift another sister or another person and say, hey, I love your outfit. I love your hair.
Yeah.
I love your dress. For me, that's beautiful, because that's saying you have enough confidence that you can find something good about someone else to highlight within them. Yeah. And I think that oftentimes as women, we tend to not do that enough.
I think I did it too much. People used to think I was gay. So I was just like, yeah, but no,
but I think that's great. Yeah. I think instead of as women, and I have that too, I can instantly, and it's a blessing. That is a gift. You can have the gift of encouragement. Yeah. So when you see someone, the first thing you see is something good. Yeah. Oftentimes people look at you and they're going to find the first thing that's bad about you. Oh, those shoes does not match that dress. Well, is that the first thing?
I used to be like that too, but I mean, I can compliment, but I mean, when I used to see crazy stuff, I used to hold on. But I love, being able to say it to the person, though. Like, I was a person who was very vocal, and I had to learn how to just reel it back, just shut up sometimes, so I'm there, and so, yeah. But I thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts and answering questions. Sometimes people get offended or feel uncomfortable with some of the questions I'm asking, or they think I'm coming at them sometimes. But, I just like ask the questions to help somebody else, and hopefully it does help someone. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for watching Your Inspirational. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, all right? See you next time.